pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You're so clean.
These green lights.
This one's on, you want this one?
Heather Davis. Edie Davis. Jim Dodd.
Here.
Brian Ellis.
Here.
Jessica Griffith. Dave Papa.
Here. Here.
Vic Mays.
Here.
David Mills.
Here.
Jacob Pack.
Here.
Don Pauly.
Here.
Steve Perry.
Here.
Adam Sigmund.
Here.
Travis Willard. Glenn Yeager.
Here.
Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the approval or take action on the minutes. Those are a part of everyone's packet. I hope you've had a chance to review. Any questions or comments related to the minutes? Go ahead and ask someone to make a motion. Is there a second? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. So the next item on the agenda is citizen concerns. There are obviously quite a few members of the public here. This is related to anything that is not on the agenda tonight. So if you're here for a specific agenda item, we'll address that once it is on the table, but this would be anything outside of anything that we are discussing tonight. Okay, so we will continue to move on. The next item is the Dan Duncan request for the extension on Stanford Heights.
Good evening. At the last Planning Commission meeting on September the 19th, the request for a preliminary plat extension was tabled until further information could be obtained. In order to discuss this at the Planning Commission tonight, we need a motion to take this off the table.
Subject.
Go give you a little background. On July 25th of 2017, Dan Duncan, the developer of Stanford Heights, was granted preliminary plat approval of a 3.2-acre tract to be developed with 14 duplex lots and 3 single-family homes. The property is located off Bills Creek Road in Tays Valley. The Planning Commission approved Stanford Heights as a major subdivision with preliminary plat approval, and it expired on July 25th of 2022. On September the 19th, 2023, Mr. Duncan asked the Planning Commission for an extension for a preliminary plat. The Planning Commission at that time tabled the decision over the extension. David Mills, president of the Putnam County Planning Commission, asked staff to speak to the county attorney regarding the request for the extension. Specifically, can a developer ask for a preliminary plat extension after the expiration of the preliminary plat approval? Staff did speak to Larry Fry, and he advised staff that the plat expired, so he cannot ask for an extension. He will have to reapply for Stanford Heights to be classified as a major subdivision and start over.
Thank you, and you answered the question that we obviously requested at the last meeting. Is Mr. Duncan here by any chance? And I should have asked this as well. Are there any disclosures of conflict related to this item?
I would like to step out because I have a similar, not exactly, but somewhat similar, so I'd rather just excuse myself.
Okay. Thank you, Dave. Are there any other public comments related to this agenda item? Okay, so I'll go ahead and close the public hearing portion. Are there any thoughts, from this board related to this item?
President, based on the attorneys answering the question we had, go ahead and make a motion to not approve an extension. It's not approved because it's not applicable. Extended.
That's in the form of a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. So I am going to, adjust the agenda just somewhat because we have, obviously, I believe, public here to address the rezoning. Mr. Hobbit did just step out. He has a similar application to what was just requested. I'm making an assumption here. I don't think his application is going to take as much deliberation and discussion as the rezoning would be. So we're going to go ahead and put Mr. Hobbit's item next.
Go check. Since we switched the agenda.
And I want to go ahead and go on record. Dave and I spoke before we started, and he did recuse himself, obviously, since he is the applicant as well.
This right here is what the first phase about these places is what David is currently working on. The back is what he's asking for. This is also the back. On September the 4th, 2015, FBD LLC applied to the Office of Planning and Infrastructure for a major subdivision of 101 single-family residential lots located on the north side of the Putnam Business Park, County Route 35 over 29, approximately 4.48 miles southwest of 817 Fraser's Bottom, tax map 162, parcel 95. The applicant submitted the application, disclosure statement, and a copy of the preliminary plat on September 4th, 2015. Attachments that were included in the summary are aerial photographs of the proposed development is Attachment C. Attachment D is a map showing the current and future proposed development of Alexander's Place. Attachment E is the right-of-way easement agreement for a 60-foot right-of-way required from Caldwell Investment Group for access from Putnam Business Park Drive. West Virginia American Water received the application for water and stated that due to the proximity of the business park, that there are adequate facilities for service. The property is served by PSD for sewer service. West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection issued the NPDES permit. Alexander's Place was approved for 2 entrances, one off Putnam Business Park Drive, the other off of 817. Drainage report plans, calculations were prepared by Calhoun Engineering, their attachment F. 4 lots within Alexander's Place are within the AE flood zone, and a CLOMA was submitted to be removed from the special flood hazard area. Office of Emergency Service approved the subdivision name Alexander's Place and addresses. The proposed declaration of protective covenants were submitted. The subdivision was legally advertised. Lee McCoy recommended approval for the project, and that's attachment G. Vic Mays made a motion to classify Alexander's Place Phase 1 as a major subdivision. Tom Hankins seconded the motion, and that motion carried unanimously. Steve Perry made a motion to accept Resolution 1505. Joe Tyree seconded the motion, and the motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Obviously, I know Dave is stepping out, but I believe his son is here. Do you guys have any comments?
So, of the two...
Yes, excuse me, sir. Do you care to come up onto the mic and provide your name and your address, please?
My name is Joseph Hava. I work for Dave. I'm also one of his sons. So for the 2 concerns for the extension that have to be met, developer has to diligently pursue the completion of the capital improvements of the land granted, of which we have done that. We lost 18 months whenever the MXP pipeline was coming through. We didn't know if we were going to have to be eminent domain. It ended up going to the Putnam County Development Authority instead of us, but we lost 18 months for that. And then during COVID, we lost another really 18 months. We had to deal with very high inflation, as most people in the industry did. A lot of shortages. You couldn't get transformers and things. It slowed us down significantly. So then I believe in 2020, there was an article written about Dave and Dave Hobba Builder, where we were still trying to overcome COVID to do the community. So we have diligently pursued it. And then since then, I believe in December of 2021, we were able to finish 52 lots for the first phase, of which I believe at the end of this month, we will have sold maybe 42 of the 52 that we started with. We already closed on financing for the next 30, of which significant work has been done on that. We already have all the gravel. We've done all the site work. All engineering has been done. So for the second piece, has the developer completed at least 75% of capital improvements? If you look at capital improvements of the land, we are probably closer to low 80%. So we would have met that threshold as well. So I believe that's all I really have for that. Are there any questions that I could maybe answer?
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Hobba?
What is it you're actually asking for?
So we need to have another, we need to have a one-year extension. So for a subdivision, you can have 2 one-year extensions, and we would need the first one. We may not need the second, but we need.
When does the first one expire as well?
It expires
October 25th?
Yes.
And I just wanted to note that they are applying in advance of the expiration as well, which is, a different set of circumstances than Mr. Duncan.
Thank you.
Yes. And they have obviously completed, a substantial amount of work. Are there any other questions for Mr. Hobba? Thank you.
Thank you.
There is a packet in front of one on each table of pictures of what's been completed, pictures of the homes and a couple of the vacant lots that are out there, if you all would like to look at that.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead. Are there any other questions or comments from the public? We'll go ahead and close the public portion. Any comments or thoughts, opinions from this committee? Yeah, I'll just go on record as saying again, just to reiterate what's already been said. We obviously have, two applications that are similar in the form of that they are applications for extension, but on the grounds of what is being applied for and what the requirements are for those applications to be granted, I do believe that there is a distinct difference. The 2 requirements that Mr. Hobba, just mentioned, I do believe they have been met, and there is tangible work that has been done and I believe will continue to be done if this extension is granted.
Mr. President, I move we approve the request for the extension.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we will, yes, Melissa, please get Dave back, thanks. Go ahead and move on to our next agenda item, which is the rezoning from R2 to C1.
Pfeiffer Properties LLC has submitted a zoning amendment application and disclosure statement for rezoning for properties located on tax map 223, parcels 58, 59, 59.3, and 60, which is located off Tays Valley Road, Scott Depot, to rezone the properties from an R2 mixed residential district to a C1 suburban commercial district. Facts that are needed to be determined. In attachment A is the bridging to the future. Attachment B is the US 35 corridor management plan. And attachment C is the amendment, is the plan's objectives are land use conflicts, land use opportunities, aesthetics, beautification, administrative enforcement. The state code comes from West Virginia State Code 8A78, amendment to the zoning ordinance by the governor body. West Virginia State Code 8A79, amendments to the zoning ordinance by petition. Get the authority from Article 150.02, its definition of terms. Article 2000.01, power of county commission. 2000.02, imitation of amendment to the ordinance. 2000.03, filing procedures. The zoning description, zoning ordinance for the zone unincorporated areas of Putnam County and R2 mixed residential. The purpose is the intent of an R2 mixed residential district to establish a variety of residential densities consisting of single-family, duplex, two-family, and compatible uses. This district shall provide for the requirements consistent with community values and needs, standards consistent with those values and needs, and appropriate for mixed and multifamily residential districts shall A, stabilize and protect the district's residential character while promoting a suitable environment for family life. B, provide for the access of light and air to windows while providing privacy by controlling the spacing and height of structures. C, require the provision of open space and the regulation of signs to enhance the quality of life. And D, require the provision of off-street parking to promote a safe and effective traffic circulation system. E, to promote a variety of residential types and densities to accommodate a diversity of households. Article 600, C1 suburban commercial. The purpose is the intent of a C1 suburban commercial district is to provide for retail businesses and services that serve primarily the residents of suburban areas of the county. This district shall allow convenience and personal service establishments generally compatible through proper and site planning with residential uses by limiting the number of uses of intensity of the development. The surrounding residential and commercial property values shall be enhanced by protecting them from excessive levels of noise, lighting, and other nuisances. Facts. Pfeiffer Properties LLC submitted a zoning amendment application and disclosure statement for rezoning for properties located on tax map 223, parcels 58, 59, 59.3, and 60. Tax map 223, parcel 58, 59, and 59.3 are located off Tays Valley Road. On tax map 223, parcel 60 has frontage off Tiger Lane. These are in Scott Depot. Pfeiffer Properties LLC is asking to rezone the properties from R2 mixed residential to C1 suburban commercial. A copy of the application and disclosure statement is included as attachment A. The applicant is requesting to rezone tax map 223, parcels 58, 59, 59.3, and 60, totaling approximately 9.071 acres on Tays Valley Road and Tiger Lane, Scott Depot. In order to request a rezoning, the property must abut the same zoning district that an applicant wants to have their property rezoned to. A survey plat showing the nearest C1 suburban commercial districts have been projected property lines of an overlap of 0.69 at the center line. The plat was prepared by Randolph Engineering on August the 22nd, 2023. That is included as attachment B. The blown-up portion is over there for your review, if you would like to look at that. The applicant submitted a deed attesting ownership of the properties. That is attachment C. Attachment D, is the R2 Mixed Residential District, which describes the principal uses. Article 600C, C1 Suburban Commercial District, the permitted principal uses, accessory uses, special permits is attachment F. The lots on tax map 223, parcel 58, 59, and 60 are undeveloped. Parcel 59.3 has an existing house that is currently being rented in a storage building. The structures will be torn down once the property is sold and development begins. A copy of the zoning map and photographs of the site and area is included as attachment F. The proposed rezoning site is outlined in black. The zoning districts which are adjacent to the subject parcel include the following. R2 Mixed Residential abuts Pryford properties to the north, south, east, and west. The parcels are surrounded by R2 Mixed Residential. C1 Suburban Commercial is located south of tax map 223. As attachment B states, the C1 Suburban Commercial overlaps by 0.69. Please refer to attachment B. Photographs of the property is included in attachment G. Water and sewer services available through Putnam Public Service District. The legal advertisement describing this rezoning and public hearing was published in the Hurricane Breeze. That's included as attachment H. Abutting landowners within 250 feet were notified of the rezoning request and public hearing. A sign describing the rezoning request was posted on site and is included as attachment I. To date, when these packets went out, we had just had a few questions. They were concerning property taxes, and they were more interested in knowing what uses were allowed in a C1 and if we knew what was going to be located there. If you have any questions, please ask. And I do believe the developer is here. If you have any questions for him.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Thank you, Judy. Okay, let's continue on. Developer, would you like to make any comments? Sure. But yeah, please come to the mic, state your name and your address, please.
My name's CJ Pfeiffer. I live at 214 Walnut Drive in Hurricane. I bought this property about a year and a half ago. It was zoned R2 when I purchased it. I bought it with the intention of putting a lower income apartment community development there. I'm applying to have it rezoned because I feel like the community could probably benefit from something other than lower income apartments. I'm not sure what that is at this point, but I'm just trying to give us some different development options for the property other than the apartments. So,
Are you looking at something more?
yeah, I really haven't landed on anything. I just know that the C1 zoning is going to give us a lot more options for possibly retail or maybe a restaurant or you know, other things, other types of businesses. With the R2 zoning, I'm very limited to what I can do. You know, basically apartments is the only thing that I would be allowed to put in there the way the property is currently zoned. So
I know this application is for, you know, several parcels. Have you considered, you know, only requesting a rezoning of a couple of the parcels, or is, obviously I know this is for all of them, but just curious.
So that's been brought up a couple of times. Obviously I applied to have them all rezoned. You know, I would prefer to have them all rezoned to C1. But if there's, you know, if they qualify to be rezoned, then I would like to have them all rezoned. But I'm open to adjusting that. But any residual property that remained R2, I would develop into an apartment community, just in order to recoup my investment.
Yeah, following up on President's question or Mr. question, looking at this parcel or these parcels, they go way back through there. surrounded by a lot of residences. But, so I would understand, more inclined to agree with you on the two lots, 223, 59, and 58, that front on Tays Valley Road and are next to Dairy Queen and across the creek. And we have that access off Tays Valley Road for commercial purposes, but that narrow lot that goes, going all the way back through there, that once you get past that area out toward the frontage, that's all residential back in there, so I would encourage you to consider, possibly just doing the frontage area and keep the back part residential.
I understand.
It's just, that,
There are a lot of different types of businesses that could be interested. I mean, a self-storage facility may want to develop the back part into some storage units someday, and that would not be loud or a nuisance to the community around there or something of that nature, but with the R2 zoning, I wouldn't be allowed to do that. So,
I understand, it's just that if going to C1 opens up a lot more than just storage buildings.
it does. It does. I'm just trying to have some better options other than HUD apartments right there. I don't think the neighbors want that in there, so.
With that being said, you're asking for a C1 zoning, and I do agree with the front two lots. You're asking us to approve C1 zoning without having any kind of idea of what may be there. And with the residents around it, I could imagine how that they would be affected or could possibly be affected without an idea of what may be going into that area.
Well, the only thing that I know for sure is that if it doesn't get rezoned, I'm going to have to build the apartments on it in order to recoup my investment. I don't have any plans for any commercial development at this time. I'm just trying to find a better option for the property other than apartments, so.
Well, I think you understand my question there, that if we say yes and you have come to us and I just want to zone this for whatever, we wouldn't have an idea, just kind of give you an open end of whatever you wanted to do at that point in time. And we have to think of the residents, and there may be residents here. I know how I would feel if I were able to give somebody an open end, what you would like to have.
Donald, let me just add to that, just for the good of the group and for Mr. Pfeiffer here, we really don't have the authority to request, what you're going to do, with the property in terms of, if it's going to be R2 or, if it gets rezoned to C1. Would we like to know? Yeah, it would be helpful, but ultimately that should not impact our decision. That decision is going to rely upon, the highest and best use of the property and protecting the general welfare of the county.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Just to be an actor, just to ask a question. I'm looking at lots 58, 59, and 223. It looks like there's a small slit that splits those lots that are part of 59.3. So if you were to change your application and just ask for 58 and 59 to become C2 property, C1 properties, I'm wondering if you would have, if that would inhibit what you could do with those new properties with that land in between them.
Well, I think that it would make the second lot not eligible for rezoning because there would be no overlap with the commercial property. So, for that reason, I'm asking just to rezone the whole thing because those three lots adjoin along Tays Valley Road.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Pfeiffer?
I do agree with my piece of property, and of course, like to maximize your investment, and with the landowner or homeowner around this. Pfeiffer is in fact a well-known individual in Hurricane County, has a lot of money in this county. I'm just saying that I don't think Mr. Pfeiffer's intentions are something that would hurt the community. I'm kind of at a loss. It is on Hayes Valley Road. Hayes Valley Road is one of the most densely populated areas in the state. So, again, there's a lot of residents here. I don't know what a good answer would be, just to go C1 or R2. But I've been over this many, many times in other cases. Mr. Yeager, Mr. Smith here in Hamilton County. There's a lot of issues if you rezone it as C1. Of course, there is some restrictions on that. If it's on R2, like it's been stated, he can build all the apartments that he wants, all the disabled points, and there's nothing that any of you can do about that part. But you cannot stop apartments from being built, you can't stop houses from being built. Now, you could probably stop, a warehouse. A warehouse would be a good neighbor versus a disabled point. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not saying anything bad. We're good either way. But I think everybody needs to look at the bigger picture. It may be like doctor's offices. It may be nice apartment buildings. I mean, more so than, I say, disabled point, because you know that housing demand is going nothing but growing. And Hayes Valley is a very desirable place to live. Again, if it were my property, I would want a little more leeway, so we can hear from some of the residents, see what they have to say.
And we will get to the public here shortly. Are there any other comments for the developer?
Yeah, I would like to add to that, if this was zoned to C1 and like business or other use went in, since it does abut residential property, there would be screening restrictions and setbacks and things to deal with noise and onlookers and all of that, which necessarily would not happen in a residential. Probably a little more protected in a C1 than an R2.
But would it have another entrance up here where this 223?
There is frontage on Scott Lane, but as I said, I have no plans at this time.
That could be something to access to.
It could, yes, it could be a second entrance.
And you said Scott Lane, is that Tiger Lane?
Maybe that is Tiger Lane. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next portion would be any public comments. Obviously, there are several individuals here. What I would ask is go ahead and raise your hand. If you do want to make a comment, we'll get you to come up here one by one, because there is a large group. We are going to limit your time to 5 minutes each. And please, again, state your name and your address. Does anyone have a comment? Go ahead, sir. Red hat first, please.
Sorry, I beat my guess. My name is David Atkins. I'm a resident of the Scott Creek subdivision, like many of my neighbors that are here today. I live at 400 Nicole Marie Drive, so I don't necessarily abut the property in question. Obviously, everybody in our subdivision has questions. We may not all be here today. I think the primary one is what's going to go in there. And I think that the questions that Mr. Polly asked were what's on our mind. From our understanding, we've kind of been left with okay, either we're going to build some apartments there, they may be government financed, HUD housing, whatever we want to call it, or it can be rezoned and then something commercial will go in. So we have a couple of questions, and concerns. First and foremost, we have water issues in our subdivision. We are directly south of where this property would be, and we have a lot of issues coming from water. So we would have concerns if something commercial were to go in there, whether it's a storage facility, apartments, whether it's a Starbucks, whatever the case may be. It's obviously all going to be impervious surface, and that water's got to have somewhere to go. So we would be very concerned. I mean, our subdivision litigated this issue for a year with neighbors against neighbors, trying to figure out what to do with the issues. So obviously, it's still a fresh wound for us. That's probably our primary concern. The secondary concern is what impact it may have on the values of our property. If we put in, some apartments, will that increase the value? Will it decrease the value? And that's just something that we don't know. And we were hoping, that maybe the developer would say, oh, yeah, actually, I've been in talks with, Starbucks, for example, and, talking about that. But we'd also want to know how that impacts traffic and how is that going to impact egress and, and getting in and getting out, So we have a lot of concerns, and I don't think we're trying to impinge on the developer's rights. But to be fair, he did buy this property knowing its zoning a year and a half ago. It's not like he's been sitting on it for 20 years and said, oh man, I'm just never going to make any money on this. When it was bought a year and a half ago, I assumed that whenever it was initially zoned, it was zoned that way for a reason, and maybe it was zoned that way to protect the property owner. So those are some of the questions and queries that we have, and I don't know if we've gotten those answers today, but we did want to make those concerns known to the committee.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and make some comments to the issues or concerns that were addressed, and I will ask staff to assist because I'm obviously not an engineer. But the three items that were brought up in terms of water retention, property value, and traffic, those are generally the three items that we receive anytime that a zoning request has come in front of this board. The positive to those are with if it's R2 or if it gets zoned to C1, C2, there are certain requirements in our ordinances for retention. Obviously, the state, could require a traffic study with that as well. And then the property values, that's obviously up for opinion on, what type of development and what impact that could have on values. But Dave, can you, maybe touch to the retention side of things and traffic?
Yeah, the engineering design process would take place after this rezoning discussion. If it is rezoned to C1, then all of the engineering criteria the developer would have to meet along with his design engineer for drainage, retention necessary, screening relative to residential properties. There will also be a lot of impervious surface with apartments as well. But after this discussion is for zoning, and the engineering that is an issue that will be addressed either way, no matter what he decides to develop here, be it a commercial development or residential development. Those things will come after this discussion of what can be done. Pardon?
You're saying that they're basically helping with the water issue. Is it all, they're likely to get water out of the property as it is?
Possible.
Yes, it's whatever it is to do.
Yeah, plus that will all be, professional engineer whose job is to design drainage and retention. Will be working with the developer.
Correct me if I'm not mistaken, but that has to be approved through the Department of Environmental Protection as well.
Well, with our new, we have new ordinances where we're not as involved with DEP and things like that as we were, but we still do the engineering review relative to drainage, retention, things such as that. So,
Yeah.
after it's decided whether or not you recommend for the rezoning, any type of development Mr. Piper decides to do here will be designed by a professional engineer, presented to this office, which will
I think it's probably fair to say that whatever is done to this property, being R2 or C1, any development that is on it, any water issues that are currently there today should not be made worse. They should, at a minimum, remain the same, if not improve, probably most likely improve. Anyone else from the public would like to speak? Sir in the yellow shirt?
My name's Bob Godby, and I live at 108 Dominic. This property spans my whole backyard. We've lived there for the last 2 years. When we moved in, we were not told that where our house sits used to be a swamp, which has nothing to do with this, but you'll see in a minute. Okay, and so whoever was there, who lived in the house before us, put in a really nice ditch in our backyard. It's big, nice. When this still had trees on it and underbrush, when it would rain hard, it would still come over top of that ditch. There's not enough ditch right now to hold it back, even though it's a big ditch, and you're all invited to come and look at it. And if y'all allow him to do this, which the other day I was out mowing my lawn, I looked at the front part of his property. It's probably, just trying to eyeball it, is the top of my windows, maybe my roof, okay? Then it comes down, and then the two sides go like this. It's like a V. So during the summer or spring, I put rocks right there to slow the flow. And I've got kind of PTSD already. I was flooded 3 times at my house in Nitro. So you can see what I'm going through here. If whatever he puts in there, it's going to take a lot of land just to level that out. And we're doomed. I'll just tell you right here. I'm not an engineer, but I'm going to tell you, we're going to get flooded. That's our biggest worry. And then the second worry we heard was going to be low-income housing. At the end of my dad's street in Cross Lanes, they put low-income housing there. I just don't have time to pick up syringes and stuff. I don't want that. My house is a nice house. It's expensive. All those houses around there are. And there's probably going to be a mass exodus if you guys let him do this. And that's pretty much all I got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Godby. Yeah, just 1 second, Mr. Godby. You can stay up here. Are there any questions or comments, just real quick, Mr. Piper, for Mr. Godby? Yeah, so it's currently zoned.
Sorry.
He's not coming to apply for the apartments now, that's already there, he's already R2. What I think he's trying to say is he's trying to find something else to do. And what he's doing now is right.
But like I said, there was underbrush and trees, and when it rained really hard, it would come over the side.
That's something he'd be responsible for. Now,
Well, and that's what my point, if he does that, there's going to have to be cement and other stuff. And then you have nothing to hold back. Nothing at all.
Here in this county, everything is big, it's expensive, it's all get out of there, something not roughly ready. And it's city's pipes, we're looking at it.
So that's going to be my home.
That's on you, that's on you. Your retention, you do something in your property, and something impedes yours.
I would like to, all of you all said, it's gonna take a lot of land just to level that out. And,
And what you're speaking of is something that, you know, Mr. Piper, if it stays R2, you know, and it does become, you know, residential housing, he has the choice of what type of housing that would be. And the retention side of things and, you know, the storm flow, that is going to be done with the engineering that Mr. Koff spoke about earlier. And with respect to everyone's time, we are at 5 minutes, so we do appreciate your time and your comments. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Anyone else from the public have any comments? Yes, sir.
My name's Herbert Campbell. I live at 155 Tiger Lane, formerly Scott Lane. I'm here with my wife, Sharon. I live at parcel 60.8 on Tiger Lane. Bought that property from the previous owner of these parcels, Marshall Humphreys, some 40 years ago. Been there a long time. Seen Putnam County grow in a lot of positive ways over the past. That road that we originally lived on was tar and chip to the top of my house, where across from the Baptist church here at Scott Good Shepherd. But I've written down several points of consideration, and I want to thank you board members for being here and listening to us and taking us into consideration. I really appreciate it. But I've written it down. I'm going to try to get it done within 5 minutes.
Thank you.
But of course, the parcels are completely surrounded on all sides by single-family residential homes and mixed residential districts. This rezoning approval change to suburban commercial, it will be incompatible. It'll be completely incompatible to this area, and it's going to change the whole neighborhood dynamics will change. It will change. If approved, and I appreciate Mr. Piper, what he does and his duties and his employment, but he has a possibility of putting in, the way I read the ordinance, 59 possible land uses he can develop. And I want to point out the 0.69 acres that is allowing him to apply without a specific site plan is not contiguous to these 4 parcels. That 0.069 is across the street, across Tays Valley Road, and it does not touch these parcels. And I can also tell you that parcel 60, which is immediately adjacent to my land, does not currently touch a C1 suburban commercial property. There's going to be some safety issues, inconvenient living atmosphere, the high quality of life in here, the reasonable privacy, the quietness, the peaceful surroundings. All those are going to change. They're all going to change. The highway access and the welfare is the real concern for this rezoning change. Access from the parcels via Tays Valley Road and Tiger Lane. Tiger Lane is a very, very narrow, unlined street, very narrow. And parcel 60 will, at the junction of parcel 60 and Tiger Lane, there's a vision field obstruction. The way I read it, according to 1700.04 of the Putnam County Ordinance document, 2.5 foot is the limit. And I can tell you right now, when you look at this flat plan, unless you've driven up that road, you can't appreciate where 60 turns into Tiger Lane. There's at least that much but whoever's going in and out, ingress and egress on 60, you cannot see. There's a hump there where I live, and I mean, it's dangerous. The
Yep.
traffic.
30 seconds, sir. Thank you.
Are
You
you
have, yeah, you
serious?
have 30 seconds, yes.
According to the Putnam County Comprehensive Plan that's been submitted, the number one goal of that plan, bridging to the future, is to the protection of the residents' health, safety, and welfare. On 107 of the plan, it says the major concern is to maintain the zoning regulations that maximize roadway safety and minimize congestions. Now, on Tays Valley Road, give me one more minute.
Speed it up, please.
On Main Tays Valley Road, Section D of the Transportation Plan on the Comprehensive Plan, page 61, says the goal is to encourage, when it comes to roads, encourage property development and transportation network growth concurrently, together. Tays Valley Road and property development to be done concurrently, together.
Mr.
To
Campbell,
mitigate-
we're at time, though,
to
so thank you.
mitigate- To mitigate stress, the reason, we know the traffic problems there on Tays Valley Road. We know that there's been applications to the Department of Transportation and the Department of Highways to widen that road down through there. We understand that. You know, we understand, we get that, but it's dangerous. Tays Valley Road is a dangerous road, congested road. It is. And with this, whatever, that's going to go in commercially, it's going to add to that until such times that road is widened. You know, this isn't State Route 34 that goes down to Hurricane. This on Tays Valley Road, this is a small two-lane road. And we understand that.
Sir, I've given you a few extras, so we do appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay.
Are there any questions or comments for Mr. Campbell?
The lot you talked about, number 60,
Yes, sir?
that's the one there at the top of the knoll.
Yes. It runs out parallel to Tiger Lane and then makes a 90 back toward where these people live. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, across from Scott, yes, from Good Shepherd, yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. And, Mr. President, I think he made some very valid points, and I don't want to offend anybody. I've been on this commission a long, long time, and nobody that I know of in the past, nobody back in the years used to say that Leslie's developed a lot of property, and they were well-known and spent a lot of money in the county. Neither had the Hodgeses. And we've served and followed these regulations for years. And so I just want to go on record that I'm against this. I have to leave. I've got someone in the hospital. But, Mr. President, no disrespect to anybody, but this was never a political body before.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Vic.
Anybody else?
Are there any other comments for Mr. Campbell? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Are there any other comments from the public? Sir.
I'd like to put on the record that I am opposed to this.
I know that my hearing must be because I never heard a word she said.
So your name and address, please.
My name is Richard Holcomb. I'm at 204 Rachel Drive. I'm at, I guess it's 221T28. It parallels, it's adjacent to the land that's being requested to be developed. So obviously I'm not happy, but That's not my question. I am a retired engineer. If you look, they gave us this little sheet here. The only properties that's flat is the first two you all talked about. Right here. The rest of this property slopes. It's hard to develop. The only thing that could be developed there is what he's talking about, low-cost housing, which would, I have worked with HUD a lot, if that's what he's talking about. It would lower the property value of everybody along that road. I don't know how to make your decision for you. I'm just saying that the land really can't be developed for anything but, my opinion. It can only be developed for apartments. There's not enough land there. Look at the little strip there. There's nothing there. It looks, and it's not flat. Ingress and egress, which the engineer probably will address that. You got our road and there, and the road that's going up to the gentleman's there. They're pretty close together, and you're going to put a major road, another egress off that. It's not flat. It's up like this. It's going to take a lot of construction to get that in. I wish he hadn't bought the land. It's been sitting there for years, not being developed. There's a reason for that, by the way. But to answer your question, you have a choice to make. Someone said it right. The first two land properties, it can be developed for commercial. The rest of it, probably not. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Holcomb. Any questions or comments?
I was just going to comment, there's been a couple people speak tonight about the low-income housing.
Yeah.
And one thing we need to make perfectly clear, and I think one of the folks over there tried to make the point is, we're not talking about whether he can do.
I know that.
He can already do that today.
He could do whatever he wants to that property.
Without even
He
coming
owns it.
back to us. He can
Yeah.
file his application with the planning department and move forward. So that's not, you know.
I understand
Okay,
that.
all right.
I understand that.
All right.
It's his land. He can do whatever he wants with it,
Okay.
short of going to, not going to, you know, it's how it's zoned, of course. Obviously, all of us in that neighborhood would rather he leave it alone, but that's not our say-so.
It's out of our hands.
It's all our hands. I understand that. Appreciate y'all's comment.
Thank you, sir. I do want to address one thing that Mr. Campbell did bring up in terms of abutting properties and this property not abutting anything that is C1. So it actually does. And the roadway, Tays Valley Road, the property across from parcels 58 and 59, anything across that street that abuts those would be considered applicable if it was zoned either R2 or C1. And the property that sits at parcel number 112, I believe, Dave, if I'm correct, is currently zoned C1. And the .64, that's .64, .69, that's .69 feet. There are no restrictions in our ordinances in terms of how much distance needs to be abutted. There is no limitation, lengthwise in terms of major or minor on that. So I just wanted to make that comment. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak?
My name's Tiffany Schertzinger. I live at 110 Dominic, and I live beside Mr. Godby. So the water that comes off of the valley onto him comes onto me, and I know that that is not something that is going to happen tonight. That is we will watch for that as time goes, whatever gets developed there. I think that I know that he can do whatever he wants with it as it is R2. I think that some of us feel like it's a little manipulative to say, agree with me to do commercial or I'm going to put HUD in, because he could very easily put Devonshire quality apartments in and not have low-income housing in the middle of the houses. And I mean, it's a nice area of town, and it's not an area where I think low income is necessary. The houses are affordable to the people that afford them, and nice neighborhood apartments would also be affordable to people in the area because it's a nice area. I think that one of the big concerns for us in rezoning it commercial is that he doesn't have any plans, but what's to stop him from immediately then selling it out to somebody, because now he has a huge chunk of commercial property, which is going to be pretty valuable. And we could get a strip mall or lots of things that are, I know that he has to stay within parameters and boundaries of noise and what's, would affect us, but just putting a strip mall in the middle of neighborhoods because there's a half of a foot overlap with Creed equipment across the street is frustrating, I guess. And even if he gets it C2, he can still put his HUD apartments in as commercial. So because that's an overlap in zoning building abilities. So that's kind of all I have to say. I mean, if it's more living places, obviously there's going to be more traffic because there's going to be more bodies there. I think that, right, and I mean, because, yes, but there's, I mean, I personally wouldn't care if it was storage buildings because that's quiet, but I know that that's going to be something that a lot of people are not going to want there, and they're, kind of pop up everywhere, so it's, right, but I have the benefit, I guess, of I live on the other side, so I'm not on that access point. And I would assume that somehow he would have to make a passable street if he's going to put in enough. Oh, I know, I know, but I mean, the access would have to be a certain access. And I guess, traffic would have to be looked at, and I mean, it's try to go to Dairy Queen on a Saturday night right now. So you put, apartments in there, and it would
We
be.
are three minutes over your allotment, and
That's fine.
I don't want anyone to
No,
think
that's
that I'm
fine.
cutting you guys short, but
Yep.
we're just trying to keep things
Yep.
moving here. Any other comments or questions for Mrs. Schertzinger while she's on the mic? You did make a couple comments. We've already addressed the plans. We don't have control
Yep,
over,
I know.
asking or requesting for plans to be submitted on what's going to be done at the time that they, anyone would
Yep.
make a zoning application, correct? And the comment you made about this, if it would be zoned to C1 and, possible sale and it being, a more valuable piece of property, that kind of argues against some of the comments that were being made earlier as well. So I did want to make that because C1 would be more valuable, or could be more valuable.
I guess I don't know that it's dollar amount valuable, but it's more desirable for businesses to come in, and so now you've got a desirable piece of value if it's rezoned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Go ahead, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Joanne Harrison. I live at 138 Scottsdale Lane, which goes right off of Tiger Lane. And my question is, and maybe it was answered and I didn't catch it, but whatever he puts in there is going to increase traffic enormously. And will that initiate changes to the highway, through the road through there? Because it is a terrible traffic mess. We have school children, school buses, churches, commercial and residential, and right by the Dairy Queen, it is a mess. And it's very dangerous. There are a lot of accidents there. And when I pull out there, there's a big manhole right in the middle of the road. You're scared to death to pull out. And if it weren't for oncoming people at that four-way intersection there stopping to let you out, it would not be as safe as, it is right now. So will there be any changes? Will that initiate and prompt road changes or any kind of,
So that will fall back to the DOH because it is a state-owned road. And I believe traffic studies would likely be required. Correct, Dave? Is that correct? Or could be required?
It's optional prior to recent text amendments. It certainly would be, but I believe in this situation, there would have to be discussion about that.
Yeah, so what it boils down to is it is a state-owned road. So the state, they have the authority over, if and when expansion would be done. And history would tell you that the more density that does occur, the more likelihood it is that they could make action. But again, they're the ones who control it.
thank you.
Sir?
My name is Brian Morrison. I live at 5979 Tays Valley Road, which would be partial 57. I'll probably be the only one affected if you decide to do the combining of the 59 and the 58, because that would put me in the only commercial zone. Me personally, I don't mind the idea of just those two being a commercial zone because the owner of 59.4 is also the Deals. And I know, I have talked to the Deals before, Danny, and they own the Dairy Queen right there. He had mentioned to me, this is just hearsay, back in the day, he had mentioned that he had thought about changing that to commercial to move the Dairy Queen because of the traffic exodus or traffic areas right there. But as I said, this is only hearsay. That's my comment on that one. As I said, I'm at 57. 56 is a daycare. I don't know if that's considered commercial on that too. 56, partial 56 is actually a daycare. I don't know if that's considered commercial. But as I said, I'm kind of surrounded by that part of it anyways. And yes, the traffic is bad right there and everything. So that's, I don't know. I'm just what I had to comment on it. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison.
All right,
Any
thank you.
questions or comment for Mr.?
We established earlier that 59, if you decided to take these out and just ask for those to be used on 59, you could. A small parcel of 112.
Because that little line is just a roaded easement that they had, that Marshall had. I've owned that property for 20-some plus years. And, yeah, because at the time, the lady who owned 58, when she died, he bought 58, and he also bought 59 when that lady died too. So I don't know if they ever kind of combined them together at the time. Yeah. 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 All right.
Any other questions for Mr. Morrison? Thank you, sir. Is there, or are there any other questions? Yes, sir.
My name's Brian Eastep. I live at 200 Rachel Drive, which is inside of a Scott Creek subdivision. Just going to be brief and to the point. A lot of people have already addressed a lot of the concerns that I share. But primarily, I know we're not supposed to make a decision on the usage of the property because they weren't obligated to tell you guys what they were going to do with it. However, studying the zoning ordinances, looking at the property, what can be developed on a C1, I would ask you to respectfully deny that because of the usage aren't contiguous with what surrounds it. I mean, other people have mentioned it's completely surrounded by R2. It's developable as R2. It doesn't need to change to commercial. That's a big jump in a zoning ordinance change from an R2 to a C1, the usage. It's really big. Again, some of the other concerns I echo, but again, I don't think C1 is appropriate usage for these pieces of property.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Eastep? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Sumiko Clark, 92 Mellert Drive. So on the map, we are parcel 223T110, so towards the south end of that. And I echo most of what my neighbors have said here. One thing, we didn't get copies of all the documents that you guys were provided, but as she was reading them, it was reading, I believe, the description of what R2 is, and it kept mentioning family, family, family. And one thing that hasn't been mentioned yet is the kids. We have a lot of neighborhood kids. There's a school there. There's a church there. We've got kids running around the neighborhoods. We got kids walking to and from Dairy Queen. And having a commercial property there, drawing in strangers who don't live there, who aren't part of the community, that is concerning to me. We have this great neighborhood where the kids at night, they play capture the flag until 11:30 at night in the summers, and we know they're safe. We know that they're there. We know that we can, if we need to find our kids, we just drive down and find where all the bikes are piled, because we can let them run. We can let them run through the whole neighborhood without concern of where they are or who they're with, and we know that they're safe. Putting commercial property right behind there, right behind our houses, is concerning, especially as a mom. I have 4 kids. And even the little ones, we got one of the little ones here tonight, but even the little ones get in on the playing, running through the neighborhood together. And then the school there, we've got kids that walk home to and from school who are within walking distance. As far as the traffic, I'm teaching 2 15-year-olds to drive right now, and Tays Valley Road is not a safe place to teach kids to drive already, much less with more traffic coming in. I don't even when I'm teaching my kids to drive, I don't even let them pull out on Tays Valley Road there. We drive over to Save a Lot, then they take over, just because it is so dangerous there. There's a curve right around there. It's really hard to see if you're facing south, so that would be to the west. There's not very much visibility there. So those are my main concerns. The kids, traffic's already been discussed, but mostly the kids.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Carter.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the public?
I have a question for maybe the committee members can answer. I'm just curious, in previous examples where a property's been rezoned from an R2 to a C1, how does that affect the appraisal values of the surrounding properties?
I'm unable to speak to that. That would be something we'd have to research.
Is there like a general counsel here that might be able to answer?
Not here present.
And the way that usually works, sir, just so you know, is if someone's opposed or someone believes that their property values are going to decrease, like this group of folks tonight, once you get notice of tonight's meeting, it's incumbent upon you, unfortunately, to go out and hire a real estate professional, an appraiser, or somebody to come in here and present evidence to the committee. Say, if this goes in and they develop this as commercial, all these surrounding property values are going to be affected one way or the other. They're going to go up, they're going to go down. We don't have that information. That has to be brought to us.
Right, I mean, I think it would be important. I'm just curious, if you can't mandate that they tell you what's going to be built, how would you be able to do that effectively?
You would provide the zoning, the C1 zoning to that appraiser, that engineer, or whoever would be providing that hypothetical assumption.
Yeah, because I think there would be a big difference between Starbucks and a storage facility.
Sure, that whoever would appraise that or come in and give us their expert opinion of how the values would be affected would base it on C1 zoning and the dozens of different types of businesses that would go in there. But again, you all didn't do that. I'm sorry. It's incumbent upon anyone who comes in here to bring that to us. That's not part of something that we do on our own. And as far as, not knowing the type of business that can go in there, that's unfortunate, but that's the law. I wish it was different. I don't like it, but it's unfortunate. That's just the way it is.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments, Jim. Again, any other questions, comments from the public?
Would you all have more regulation over the C1 versus the R2 as far as the noise limits and the different things that are in that zoning ordinance? Or let's say that he did come with his planning request to put in low-income housing under the R2, would we have any recourse to appeal that because it would negatively affect us, or that was done, correct? Like, he could do that without any rebuttal or appeal from us, correct?
So to answer the second question, the answer would be yes. He would have the ability to do that as long as it falls within, the R2 requirements. The first question, Dave, I'll look to you to help answer that one in terms of, noise, elimination of, obviously the screening would be required, which would assist. Water retention, we've already touched on, that would likely improve as well. But in terms of noise, I know that there are certain pieces and call it businesses or requirements that do have restrictions in terms of operations and hours within our ordinances.
The developer and the design engineer will make design choices that have to follow the regulations in the zoning ordinance relative to screening, noise, anything like that.
Setbacks.
Setbacks. There are, C1 has a complete set of regulations that have to be followed relative to what is being designed. And that's the responsibility of the design engineer to follow those ordinances. And there's screening and things like that whenever a commercial property butts residential property, things that have to be followed. And those are regulations that our office and the county engineer reviews to make sure that those things are being adhered to before a project is approved.
Those answer your questions?
Just to be clear, so if it was a C1 and he applied for a specific type of business, we would probably be notified and we'd have the opportunity to come in for the things, no?
No, so it would fall back in line with the R2 question. So it's R2 currently today if he wanted to do a low-income housing and the project itself fell into the ordinances and the requirements within our rules, it would not have to come back to this committee. If it is rezoned C1 today and the use falls within that C1 and falls within those requirements, he would not have to come back.
I want to point out that what you're referring to is a public hearing. There wouldn't be a public hearing regarding that use. However, as he stated, there is regulations as far as getting improvements to start that business that will put extra restrictions on it. That's really what we're looking at here today. Right now, we can't control it in that property. And if he wants to, he can go in and do, like you said, build all these apartments. You're still going to run into a drainage problem that he's going to have to take care of as part of that. We'll have to deal with property value issues. We'll deal with more traffic. Could be 4-story apartments on a house. You won't know. If he changes it to C1 and gives him other options, you can't dictate that either, but there is other options that would require more screening, things like that. So maybe, I feel like it would be in the best interest to open up the opportunities there rather than pigeonhole it, like you said. That's just my opinion.
David, I like that suggestion. There's something else that I think we can get here.
Glenn, will you speak up just a little bit too, since you don't have
We don't make any decisions at this board. We really don't. We try to relate what the rules are, and then we make a recommendation to the county commissioners, and they do whatever they want to do anyway. I've seen you go up there, voting in, but I've seen it go both ways. So that gives you all an opportunity to get that realtor, that person to come out and do a real estate evaluation. And present it to this gentleman and then the other two county commissioners. We don't have the power. We're just out here to place there. That's just, try to make recommendations about it.
He's correct. We're more of an advisory board to the county.
We just make a recommendation. Our recommendation goes to the 3 county commissioners, and they'll set it on their agenda to either approve our recommendation or disapprove our recommendation.
Or modify it as well.
Or modify it. So if in fact tonight, this commission approves that and recommends the approval of it to the county commission, you all will have another opportunity to go before the county commission, once they put it on their agenda, and to speak to whether or not they should approve it or disapprove it, just like you are here tonight. And you'll have an opportunity to bring in evidence at that meeting, and I would highly recommend that you do, if in fact this is what you want to do, to talk about property values and how they'll be affected by if it's rezoned commercial and what have you. So you'll have a second bite at the apple if it's approved.
Yes, sir, Mr. Campbell.
Is there a notification? How does that work when it goes to the 3 members? Is there a notification to us with the sign-ins?
Yeah, I'll ask Melissa to address that, please.
Yeah, anyone who properly signed in tonight or is within the 250-foot radius of the overall boundaries will receive notice of the county commission meeting.
Yes.
I'm not familiar with a lot of like plots and all of that stuff, but is there once these plots are lined out, are they able to be like lines redrawn? Like, could he come in and say those two, like, because it's got the driveway to the farmhouse is between those 2 lots, could he redraw those lines and make the chunk that is on Tays Valley Road that has that half foot, like a chunk in the front of it and have that be its own parcel, and then the rest of it be a separate parcel, like could combine and redraw those lines? Is that something that is allowed?
It would be allowed. It would take an engineer survey and a deeding of property, but it would legally, it could be done.
Under the requirements that they have in place.
That's just kind of a, like, you know.
Go ahead, Mr. Piper.
And then once, if I did that, then the rest of it would be eligible for rezoning because then it would be adjoining commercial property.
Right, that's what I'm asking, like, as, just creatively in my brain, you know, like, if the chunk on the front that is beside the daycare and between, Dairy Queen was a chunk on Tays Valley Road that you could put something right there, and then residential the rest.
Are there any other comments from the public? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close the public portion. So what that means is we obviously appreciate everyone coming out, providing your concerns, your comments. It's then going to come back to this board. We're going to have some deliberation, discussion, and likely make a motion. Okay, so does anyone on this committee have any opinions or comments they would like to make?
I'll make one comment, that as R2, he can put apartments in there. They can be as attractive as Devonshire, or they cannot be. If it is C2, he can still do the same apartments, maybe more density, but he does have a separate set of requirements for setbacks and buffers that he would not have to be held accountable for under the R2.
Thank you, Dave. Are there any other comments from any members? Okay, I would like to go ahead and go to the worksheet to go through the criteria. So the first question on the worksheet is, will the proposed amendment protect and promote public health, safety, convenience, morals, and general welfare? Does anyone have an opinion on that?
Say yes. That Mr. Hava, myself earlier, stated that the changes give certain limiting standards that may protect some of the citizens.
Does anyone have any additional opinions on number 1?
I would agree with what was just said. I do think that going to C2 could protect the area better than R2.
And it would be
because of
going
the
to a C1.
requirements that are required of the developer in C2. C1, I'm sorry, C1.
Jim, I think you were
Yeah,
going to make a comment.
Mr. President, I would agree with both of those comments if we were talking about just the lots and the portion of lot 59.3 that are abutting, fronting on Tays Valley Road. But with respect to the larger lot, part of 59.3 and 60 that go back and are completely surrounded on all sides by residential property, I just cannot agree that this would protect and promote the public health, safety, convenience, morals, and general welfare of that community. I think the characteristics would be completely changed, potentially completely changed, and would be incongruent with the residential properties surrounding it. So I would think the answer to that first question would be a no, in my opinion.
Does anyone else have any other opinions?
Number of homes that are already built, homes, if a resident, it's already residential or residential good. Allow more residents to come to the city.
Thank you. Anyone else have an opinion? Okay, those who are in favor of question number 1 being a yes signify by aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
We do a roll call, please.
No.
Yes.
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 Yeah, please excuse my vote unless there's a tie vote. Thank you.
No.
No.
Yes.
Did you call my name out? I'm sorry. I have to say yes.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to the second question. Is the amendment consistent in achieving the objectives in the adopted comprehensive plan, US 35 corridor management plan, and the Tays Valley land use plan? Any opinions?
Commercial is only where it's small sliver across the road that's technically nothing. It's beyond that small section. It's all residential.
Thank you. Does anyone else have similar or opposing position?
Mr. President, similarly, I would agree and add that if you look at the housing goals within the comprehensive plan, promoting the connectivity of housing developments and surrounding land uses, injecting a commercial piece of commercial property in between and around that's surrounded by all these houses would not promote or be consistent with achieving the objectives of the comprehensive plan as they're written into the plan that we all have in front of us. So I would say that's a no as well.
Thank you, Jim. Any other opinions?
I would say that as far as the runoff and things like that, since Mr. Pfeiffer bought the property, runoff is still there, and there's really nothing you can do about it. When Mr. Pfeiffer turns the first shovel and third over, then you can sue Mr. Pfeiffer. Just I'm saying, because then he has to follow certain rules, and I'm sure he will. I
I think that this is actually good to protect you guys. It's, now, there's not a lot of restrictions, a lot of rules to follow. Then, he's actually held to a higher standard.
Thank you.
I'm trying to put myself in the position of being a neighbor, and I think that I would feel much better if the potential of a Dairy Queen or something that my family could enjoy that could potentially be there based on what his decision or who he sells a property to, their decision. I would rather see that than the potential of a very unattractive housing project. I think it's a lesser of two evils, and the potential of something positive is still there versus just 50 or 100 low-income housing units. I think it does.
Any other comments or opinions? We'll go ahead and take a vote, please.
No.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So the facts on the worksheet were met. I would request a motion be made for recommendation that this be taken to the Planning Commission.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Go ahead and please take a vote.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
No. No.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. The recommendation passes. The next item on the agenda, well, let me go ahead and make a comment. That closes out the zoning piece, so if anyone in the public would like to stay, you're welcome to stay, but you're welcome to head on out as well. And thank you guys for attending and providing your comments.
Planning Commission live. You being live? Where's the camera? While you're on candid camera.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda will be the second reading for the proposed amendment to the Planning Commission bylaws relative to the meeting day from the third Tuesday to the fourth Thursday of the month. Is on page 2 of the bylaws. Section 1, regular meeting, states the regular meeting of the Planning Commission shall be held on the fourth Thursday of each month at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, except in December, a place and at a time designated by the Commission. In the event that the fourth Thursday of the month shall fall on a holiday or any other day when the Putnam County Courthouse will be closed. The regular meeting of the month shall be held on the third Thursday of the month at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. The first submission in writing of this proposed amendment was read on September 19th. This is considered the second submission in writing to be read on today, October 17th. If the board wishes to make this amendment to the bylaws, you can make a motion in a second, which will be reflected in the minutes, and the change to the bylaws can be made.
Thank you, David. Obviously, this was presented to this group, or the majority of this group who was here at our last meeting. It's, in fact, exactly the same from what was presented in the last meeting, so I would, if there are any questions, be happy to answer them. If not, then would request someone make a motion to approve.
I'll move that we approve.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Can we do a roll call, please?
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
What's our vote count? How many noes? Okay. So we will wait for Mr. Hoffman. He's in the bathroom. I would like to address something else, but we can't do it while this is on the table. So. So Dave, we're getting ready to put you on the spot, but you're okay. We just went through the bylaw amendment presentation, and we had a 6-4 vote. So we do need your vote for 2/3 per the regs.
Read the same way last time?
Yes.
I think I would vote yes.
That's 7-3 or 7.
Is the member that left, did that reduce the quorum? Of the members present or of the members present?
Good? Okay. All right, so that covers item number 9. Now that that's off the table, I do want to ask the group their opinion on the time slot being 7 versus possibly bumping that towards 6. I brought that up as an idea. I typically travel from Charleston, spend maybe 30 minutes at home, juggle around, and then try to come here versus just coming from work, potentially directly to this meeting at 6. I just thought it might be more beneficial for the group. I'm not tied to it either way, but I just wanted to bring that up as a discussion point.
Mr. President, would you like me to read that, consider this a first reading, or would you like to discuss it amongst yourselves first?
I think a discussion is probably pertinent for now.
Are most meetings, like throughout the county, are any of them this late? Typically a lot of PCDAs?
Most of them.
Or one of the latest ones?
Yeah.
Board of Zoning Appeals is currently 7, and the Planning Commission is at 7. But as Commissioner Ellis said, most others are earlier.
And I have 2 children and a wife at home. That's how I'm looking at it. It's volunteer work too, so.
For staff, what time are you guys done?
Yeah, get you all.
Yeah, our day, officially ends at 4. So we have, 3 hours between the meeting.
Would that be better for you all or worse? Would you have more time to go do something, or do you want less? So you just hang out?
What would be better?
Yeah, so it's fair to say that moving it back to 6 would be more conducive for staff as well. Okay.
I think so.
Okay. So with that, are we able to then add that now, since we've had a discussion in terms of the first reading?
We will have to, I will read it with the, what I just read, but instead of saying 7 PM, I'll say 6 PM. That will be considered our first reading. We'll read it again at our next meeting. So I'll do that now. Bylaws, page 2, section 1, regular meeting. The regular meeting of the Planning Commission shall be held on the 4th Thursday of each month at 6 PM Eastern Standard Time, except December, in a place and at a time designated by the commission. In the event that the 4th Thursday of the month shall fall on a holiday or any other day when the Putnam County Courthouse will be closed, the regular meeting of the month shall be held on the 3rd Thursday of the month at 6 PM Eastern Time. Again, this is the first submission in writing of this proposed amendment, read tonight, October 17th, 2023.
Should be unchanged, I would think, right?
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, just 6 PM, yeah. Right, Eastern, yeah.
Eastern Time.
Eastern Daylight or Eastern?
Since we made that change, we have to be allowed. Until I do it.
What was that? Since that was the first reading, is there a vote needed, or that would come?
No, we do not
next
vote
month?
now. That was
Correct.
just the first reading.
Okay, thank you. Staff report?
Yep, okay. If you look at the 2023 monthly report, the development permits, it's all pretty self-explanatory, but one good thing, in September, we had 15 new residences permitted in September. From January up until now, we've averaged 9 per month. We had 15 per month, or 15 in September, so that was a nice bump there. Be glad to answer any other questions relative to the zoning permits and anything else on this sheet. If you see the development plats, we had 19 in September. We've averaged 10 per month from January through August, so that was a nice bump there. We had a lot of work there in September. And the historical spreadsheet, over the last 10 years, we've between January and September, we've averaged 208 permits. So far, we've this year, between January and September, we've done 218. So we're right on pace. Actually, we're actually 5% ahead of our 10-year average. We're a little behind what we were doing last year, but we're doing quite a bit of work.
Any questions for staff?
And you will also see in front of you the permit status report. And if you have any questions relative to any of those, I'll be glad to answer those.
Are there is there anything on this list that we should draw our attention to that you guys believe is, stale, not maybe by your doing, that needs to be addressed?
No, we're keeping on top of anything that is pending. You see, there are a few pending here, but it's typically, we're waiting on revisions, either design revisions from the engineer or maybe the client. You see one, there's a sign revision where what they've submitted does not meet the stipulations of the ordinance, things like that. But everything else is pretty self-explanatory here.
One thing that I've noticed is it's, on the ones that are pending, it's not been longer than a week since they've been contacted. And that's fantastic.
Yep. Any other comments, questions for staff? Any unfinished business?
No, sir.
Any new business?
No, I think we're done.
Go ahead and request a motion to adjourn. All those in favor?